I'm Al Forster with AVF Consulting LLC. My website is avfconsults.com. I can be reached at al@avfconsults.com or avfc50@gmail.com. How'd you like to learn how to fully automate any program that you've ever used, or write code for an environment called OpenOffice and fully automate that? So let's get started with this presentation. The my focus for this presentation is small business owners who have always thought that they would have liked to automate some application that they have to run their business, but felt that they just didn't have the funds to pay a computer programmer $50 to $150 an hour to do it. And how about potential people that would like to write code? How do you get started? What's a first step that could help you to understand if you have the right mental framework to be able to be a coder? Or retirees? How about those folks that have listened to younger people talk about computer programming or about the latest application they've used on their cell phone or tablet and become totally lost? And how about those that just want to make a little extra money writing some computer code? Well, what I've done is developed a less than 1 hour video, and by using that to install and use the program macros that I've already developed, and on a Macintosh at least, using Apple scripts that I've developed and what are called automator scripts that I've developed, be able to fully automate your application. So basically what I'm talking about is watching a less than 1 hour video that explains how to use OpenOffice and the spreadsheet version of OpenOffice called OpenOffice Calc, with about 60 macros or subroutines that I've developed to basically develop a fully automated application. On an Apple Macintosh, the technique uses 45 OpenOffice Calc macros with calls to 15 Apple scripts and automator subroutines. This approach can show anyone how to activate a sleeping password-protected Mac, run the routines that can include getting data from sources on the internet, doing calculations on that data, and generating a formatted PDF results file that you could view on any tablet or cell phone. Then saving, closing, and returning to that password-protected sleep state of the computer. The long-term goal here is to teach anyone who, with this video and about 2 to 4 hours of OpenOffice Calc effort, to download, set up, and use the PrgLesson.ods, stands for OpenOffice Document Spreadsheet file, which contains these macros and the OpenOffice Calc preferences configuration necessary to be able to develop your own applications in the OpenOffice environment. So basically what this training program does is it shows you how to fully automate code on a Mac in approximately 1 hour video and 3 to 4 hours of playing around with the OpenOffice environment. Or semi-automated code on a Windows PC or a Linux-based computer, like a $15 to $100 Raspberry Pi Zero or Raspberry Pi 3 or 4B, one board computer. Proficiency will be dependent on a person's basic understanding of using a computer. The basics are: have you ever written in a word processing program? Have you ever done some simple calculations in a spreadsheet? That's what I mean by basic understanding. Applications are only limited to your imagination. So what's the present situation? Many would like to convince you that computer application development takes hundreds of hours of college-level training and thousands of hours of code development time to become proficient in developing useful applications. I believe that anyone with a basic understanding of how to use a computer and is willing to try my approach can become capable of developing useful, fully automated applications in just a few hours. The bottom line is, try it, you'll like it. So what's the development up to the present? Well, this method only gives you a basis from which to expand your knowledge and interest in computer programming. It is only intended to show you how to quickly develop your own useful, fully automated applications. Development of these 60 subroutines has taken years of basically trial and error to get it right, to make them very short routines that can be called and function quite rapidly. I believe that anyone can take advantage of this approach and will benefit in some way, even if it's just understanding or having a feel that you know what someone is talking about when they talk about computer programming. So let's get started with the program. The points I'd like to discuss is the program application that I call PrgLesson and how it works. It has a auto toggle mode. When you turn it on, will go through calls to each one of the macros so you can see what they do. PL notification is an Apple script that basically tells you that your application has started up. There's a subroutine directory where the 15 operating system controlling programs written in AppleScript and Automator are located. When you set up the OpenOffice suite of programs, you need to do some minimal setup. Security set at minimum, and you have to identify some trusted directories where the macros will run. Possibly in the download directory, you would want to exclude that so that if you download new code and run it there, the macros won't run, but you'll be able to see what the application is intended to do. And starting with what I call a blank, clean sheet of paper is a good starting point when you're going to develop applications that are fully automated. What I'd like everybody to get from this 1-hour video and 3 to 4 hours of playing around with OpenOffice Calc is the ability of recording, running, viewing Calc macros and AppleScript and Automator scripts. The program library, excuse me, and of course, so the program LSN library that I've developed has a series of variants of Hello World, maybe the first application that anyone is taught to use when they are starting off in trying to do programming. And an understanding that delays are needed when you want your program to interact with the operating system so that everything runs smoothly. There's also a custom macro that is used to launch your application when it's first opened. There's several other applications that I recommend you have. You download. They're either free or minimal cost of $10 to $15. It's one of them is IBees, which is an application that will start any program that you might develop, or any program for that matter, at a specified time. You can launch the PrgLesson.ods file from a calendar open file open, but IBees is a smoother method of doing that. There's also some extra system controls to get out of low power mode that Apple uses to increase battery life. One of the applications is called amphetamine, the other is called caffeine, and I'll show you an example of an Apple script that calls a Linux shell program, because the core the core routine running Macs is actually Linux based. As for the Program Lessons ODS, Apple scripts and automators, I think and I feel that if you buy it, you'll like it. So what does Program Lessons actually look like? Well, it's an OpenOffice Calc application. Even though it's turned off, it's running some automated code right now. It tells us that the Program Lessons app is running, and it's running at 9:02 in the evening. It also tells us that the computer is already awake and in high energy mode. So it won't try to enter a password to get to, as you would log in if your computer has gone to sleep or you've put it to sleep and you have password access control on. When you first download OpenOffice, or how do you first download OpenOffice? Well, if you go to your web browser and type in OpenOffice download, and you go to the Apache OpenOffice site, there's been over 333 million downloads of OpenOffice. So as you can see, it's been well used in the past, and a lot of people know about it. The website is smart enough to detect what kind of computer on. So in this case, I'm on a Mac running OS X operating system, and it basically allows you to download the full installation, which I recommend. But if you were on a PC, a Mac, it would, or if you were on a Microsoft Windows 10 PC, then it would put the appropriate download for you to use. The other versions of the operating system are Linux, and one very inexpensive Linux device is this. This is a Raspberry Pi 4B. It's a has a 256 gigabyte SSD attached through its USB 3 port. This computer is costs about $100 in this configuration as you see it, but you can even get by, the code will even run on less powerful computers. This is a Raspberry Pi Zero, and this is the main board. This is a daughter board that sits on top of it that gives you uh, 1, 2, 3 USB 2 ports, and even an Ethernet port. So this is a $15 computer, and this is about a $10 daughter board. So after we download OpenOffice, what kinds of issues can we run into? Well, one of them, because Apple has tried to make their operating system very secure, and in security and privacy settings and general, you may be told right here in like a third line here that do you really want to use this program because it hasn't come from the Apple Store or have Apple identifiers. You would have to unlock your computer by typing in a password, and then you could say allow anyway to either download the DMG, the disk image, and install it. There's also privacy settings, and the subroutines that interact with the operating system are shown here. There's about 15 of them, and I'll go into some detail as we go through this first hour training video. But what you would do is click on accessibility, and you'd add each one of these 15 programs that is in this subroutine library, and by adding them, you're telling the Mac you trust these macros, these Apple scripts and Automator scripts, so that you can fully automate your application. So that's what you need to know about the download and installing OpenOffice, but there's also preferences. Now, there's a security preference, and you need to go to macro security, select at least a medium or high level of macro security. I usually choose medium, and specify the directories, in my case user admin desktop, user admin documents, and user admin documents Dropbox are the directories that can be used to run your program with the macros activated. If you download most code or most applications and run them in the download directory, then the macros will not be allowed to work. You're kind of in what's called a secure sandbox, and you can decide whether you want to use that application or not. The other thing in OpenOffice Calc under Views is I turn grid lines off. And the reason is I want to start with a blank sheet of paper and feel like I'm in full control of developing my application. So that's how I set it up. And if we were to open a new spreadsheet, you see that what you're presented with is just a plain white piece of paper or plain white screen to work with. What I did here was I put in the control buttons that will run the macros I've developed. I've put in lines where I wanted lines to be, and I've left no lines in areas where maybe I wanted to put graphics. You can also add graphics like these Pokemon characters by going to Insert, Picture from File, and in a directory like this one, under ZZ Miscellaneous, I have several Pokemon uh, images that I can actually install or add to the document, kind of dressing it up. So that's how to set up and configure your computer to start working. Now, there are a number of pull-down menus or pop-down menus, and they look very similar. If you're used to using Microsoft Office, they're very similar to that. You have all the same save routines under File, and Edit and Find routines under Edit. And with views, there's a normal view, there's toolbar views, and status bar view. The status bar is this bar along the bottom that shows the size that we're viewing this window layout in. There's also column and row headers. We can turn them off, or we can go to View and turn them back on again. You can insert things like I showed picture from file. You can specify where the print range is. If you drag over an area and you want that to be what would be printed out to a piece of paper or output to a PDF file, that's how you do it. There's tools. Protect the document. You can protect the sheet. Each sheet that I have set up here, one's called PL1, PL2, and PL3. And there's also the ability to manipulate data, such as sorting an area of the spreadsheet. So how do you add program code? One of the things we're going to do is we're going to open up OpenOffice Basic is associated with this. I've created an organizer called under my PrgLesson.ods. That means that it's going to be attached to this program, and I've associated that with a program lessons library. And you could have a number of modules. I just have one module here that has about 45 subroutines associated with it. If we hit the Edit button, you'll see where we're at, and I'll just talk a little bit about what I always, as a programmer, what I always put at the top of my program code. This is program code written in BASIC. My OpenOffice library, this is Module 1. It's for macros, and it was last revised the 15th of January 2023. I usually put a disclaimer in a main subroutine that the single exclamation point here says this is just text and it is not program code. So my disclaimer says the user has agreed to the following terms and conditions. This application or subscription document is provided as is with no guarantee or warranty of any kind. There is no guarantee of future performance of this code while using it. The user of this subscription agrees to use this product for their own personal use and not to redistribute this document in any way as is, condensed, or in modified format. The PrgLesson.ods application is locked for a $10 fee and unlocked with several videos that are focused on code development for $100. The payment can be made to my PayPal account linked through my avfconsults.com website. I've got copy protection. on it for 2022-23, and I can be reached at avfconsults.com. Al at avfconsults.com is one of the ways to be reached, and the other way was in my presentation, which was avfc50 at gmail.com. So what do the programs look like? Well, fairly simple. This is the Hello World in a message box, so I call it Hello World MB. So this is a one line of code, MSG BOX, and in quotation marks, Hello World. And if I want to run that, I would choose Tools. And first, bring the program window up. I choose Tools, Macros, Run Macro. I choose my Module 1 subroutine, and I go to Hello World MB, and I run it. And all it does is bring up a dialog box that says Hello World and gives me an OK button to turn it off. Now, if you're going to fully automate an application, you don't want to do that, because you can't get, without clicking the OK button, you can't get past that point. So if you're trying to start from a fully locked computer that's in low power mode, meaning many of its chips are turned down to such a low level that they won't run the monitor, they won't go out to the internet to, download data. They won't do anything. Apple has done this to try to minimize the amount of energy needed to keep the computer ready to go. So what I've done is have a Hello World with Apple script OK. And here is the Apple script OS X OK Apple script. I'm going to bring that up so you can see what it does. It's only about 10 lines long. It delays a second. It then says, tell application OpenOffice to activate, tell application system events to tell process OpenOffice, set foremost to true, or frontmost to true, tell window 1, which is that frontmost window, delay 1 second, then press the keystroke return. In other words, that message box that you saw could be put away by either clicking on it with moving your mouse to it, or by hitting your enter or carriage return key on your keyboard. That's what this does, but it does it just through calls to Apple's operating system. So how does to run that, we could go up to the tools menu and do the same thing we did with the first one, but I'm going to show you a different way. And what that is to go to Views, Toolbar, Drawings. You get a drawing palette along the bottom that has some basic shapes. And one of the shapes that I use a lot is the rounded corner rectangle. So I draw a rectangle down here. I might put in the rectangle Hello World OK. And since I already have one up there, I'm going to say OK1. And I can even click on this. I can click off and then click back on it, make it a little smaller, so you can adjust the size. But then I'm going to right mouse click. You're usually used to left mouse clicking, but you should really activate both right and left mouse actions. And one of the selections is assign a macro. And the macro we're going to assign is Hello World HWASOK. Assign. Okay. And now, what's going to happen? When we click on this, it brings up the Hello World, brings it to the foreground, and puts it away. Now what this does is it allows you, if you're going to totally automate something, to not be locked in a dialog box that requires someone to click the OK, to be in front of the computer screen or in front of your keyboard to press that button or to click that button. So that's how that works. And that's how you set up, and I'm going to take this and I'm just going to get rid of it because I already have one up here that will do that task. And all the rest of these buttons are just ways of running each one of these programs that's in Module 1, and I'll talk a little bit more about them. One is a Hello World status bar. So watch along. I'm going to first get rid of the drawing palette, and you'll see along the status bar along the bottom. In fact, I'll bring the status bar up a little bit so you can see it maybe a little better. I'm going to run Hello World status bar, and it says Hello World, Hello World, Hello World, Hello World, Hello World, ending OK. And it then puts back the status bar that shows the control options that you have in it. Okay, so there are many. The point is there are many ways of entering Hello World. So here's a Hello World, and notice that the programs are getting a little longer each time. The earlier ones were short, and these get longer because to manipulate and put items on a spreadsheet takes some setup code. These are dimension setup lines that dimension the word document as an object, dispatcher as an object, and argument 1 as a property value, and sets up some other words, ODoc, OSheet, OCell, to be objects as well. And then this is the program code that sets all of that up to use it. Now, if you record, you can go to Tools, Macros, Record Macro. This is the code that's always put at the top of any recording because it's needed for the application itself to record and show you how to do and program additional macros. So again, Tools, Macro, Record Macro will allow you to use many of the menu items that I talked about up here, and it will show you what macro code it writes to allow you to use that code or those selections. Okay, so what are some of the other things we can do? Okay, we're going to use this little bit of code here. It's going to go to cell A3, and it's going to put in a string, the cell string, Hello World. So if we click on Hello World, you can see that it went from cell A1 down to A3, put in Hello World. If we walk this Hello World text along, that's this macro walking text, so it just deletes the Hello World words from each cell and basically cuts them from one cell and pastes them to the next until it then at the end of that sequence comes back and pastes Hello World to cell A3 and then jumps back up to A1. That's what this program does. Okay, how about freezing and unfreezing panes? Or how about resizing the window? There's code here. We talked to, first of all, there's code here to clear the hello world word. So I'll click clear hello world, and as you can see, it just erases it. It sets that cell A3 to be double quotes. That's basically, it's erased what's in that cell. And then jumps back to A1. There's a display toggle. Now this is a call, so it first finds out where the program lessons is running, and then it knows that there's a subroutine directory below there where there's a display toggle app. So what does that display toggle app look like? We'll choose that right here. It's even shorter than the first application, and this just says tell application system preferences. On an Apple Mac, that's under the Apple menu, system preferences, to reveal pane com Apple preferences displays, and tell system event to tell process system preferences to activate that window, that display window, and basically select the tab group active window and select a group under it called scaled. It's a radio button, or to click basically radio button, and then to tell preferences to activate. So how does this code, how would this code run? Well, in fact, I'm going to just leave this up and I'm going to try running it. So here's display toggle. And here's what it brings up. Right now we're in 720p mode. Usually I'm used to running in 1080p, which is, I see more pixels on the screen, which means I can do more things on one screen, but for video purposes, I stay in this lower resolution mode. So I just called this display toggle Apple script from code here, and that the way you do that is, again, doing the same kind of dimensioning, reading the path from cell E1, which is 40, and it goes 0, A is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the top row is 0. So 40 is right there. And then it reads that as the computer path name, and then it adds the subroutine subdirectory under it and display toggle.app. You always have to put .app for Apple scripts. And then it calls a system shell execution routine that then takes that SPath1 and with double quotes and 0 just runs it immediately. And then there's a little bit of delays so that our different scripts don't overlap one another. And that's what it did. So you've now learned a fair amount about computer programming and the way your application in OpenOffice Calc can control Apple scripts that are controlling the operating system. Okay, so what else can I show you here? And you might not know this, but if you right mouse click on any folder, it tells you the whole path. Users, admin, desktop, program lesson is the same path with file : / that we have up here. So you can see the path very quickly anytime you really need to. Okay, What about jumping on PL1 is this page. PL2 is actually some data that I downloaded from the internet using a fairly simple routine. And what does that routine look like? And first of all, I'm going to resize. Right now, we're not looking at this whole sheet. So I'm going to click resize, and it will resize the sheet to fit here so we can see everything that's going on. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about is freezing panes. If I were to unfreeze panes, you'll see that the darker lines at between D and E and between 10 and 11, or between 11 and 12, have been removed. And if I move sideways, the whole sheet disappears, including my macros. By freezing panes at these points, then when I move down, the upper left quadrant stays where it is, and I see the various buttons that I'm using. So that's how that whole concept works. So we can also give what are called notifications. Like, I'd like to know when my program is running that it's actually running. So here's a program notification note that is the code that's sitting right here. And so what I'm going to do is click this button and see what happens. It says program lesson application run at 9:33 p.m. It also discovers that we're in high energy mode, that everything's running so I can do anything I want in my program, so that it tells me that we're in high energy mode, not low energy mode of a password protected state. Okay, so is there anything else I can show you? How about simple mail to? This puts up sends data, and the simple mail just uses the to send to a particular person in this that I've entered into here, their email address. If I put just the first two letters, it will put alforster1@gmail.com. If I put AV, it'll put avfc50@gmail.com. And that's because I have entered those names down below here. And it searches down through this list to see that I've already entered AV, and it's unique, and that's why it stuck the rest of this up here. So that's a quick way of adding. You can have a list that's 4 long or 100 long, so that names that you want to send to can be activated just by putting in a couple of characters. Now, email using labels then uses the to, from, subject, and body text labels to communicate with the mailing application, which in Apple's case is the mail.app, mail app, and that's how that works as well. Now, sometimes we can be over here someplace and we need to clean up everything. Maybe we're down here too, and we say, where's everything? Well, this jumping right 4, left 4 brings an up, both in the up and down positions, brings us there. So I'm going to click that, and what it did was it moved 5 to the right and then went down to 10 and moved 5 down and 5 up, so that it moves all of these windows back to the upper leftmost portion of the spreadsheet. Kind of cleans things up. Now the last thing I want to show you is, let's see, how we would run all of this, and I'm going to where is it? I am looking for resize the window so you can see everything that's happening. That was program notification. Here is a start. And this takes, and anytime you launch the application, it runs this program. And if the toggle, auto toggle, is on, then it runs more of the program. If it's off, it runs less of the program. But how does this auto toggle work? And this is how you automate an application. You would go to Tools and Customize, and the first time whenever any application opens, the application starts, a document is either created or loaded, and then a view is generated. And when the view is created, we've associated a macro with this called a start. So this is how you automate an application so that you can get all the way from low-powered, sleeping, password protected mode to the computer that can do everything you need it to do, and then back again. So I'm going to just say OK here, and we're going to run this application. In fact, I will take and close program lessons. I'll turn auto start to on, and as I said, if we were to quit OpenOffice and start it again, it would go through the whole sequence. But I'm going to just run auto start from here by clicking the auto start button. So it first does a toggle that resizes and checks that everything's right. It runs the program lesson. It tells us that the program lesson is running and that we're already awake. And it would have entered the password if we needed to get out of low power mode and be running this application. It then takes and does a series of tasks. One of them is to run that Hello World task. So here's Hello World and auto close. Here's Hello World down here on the status bar box. Here's Hello World, the walking text. This is how you would add that password needed to fully automate your system. You can type reset to reset the password if you've changed passwords, or you can just leave this go through and it says a password is entered but not confirmed, but since we have a password, a secure value is set and will be used to fully automate your system. There's also a simple mail to. This is sending out a mail message. And the last thing that I haven't shown you yet is to create PDF files after getting data from the Yahoo Finance database page. So this is all being done automatically. You don't have to be there. Here's the spreadsheet that it's copied and pasted. It basically cleans up the spreadsheet, puts new rastering horizontally and vertically so that you have it, the spreadsheet, in more or less a table. And what that application has, and then actually takes Program Lesson app, quit, and sleeps. So at this point, it's already started, and I'm going to tell it, okay, the sleep routine is not running now. I stopped it, but it's actually shut down the program and was going back into sleep mode if I wouldn't have stopped it. I'm going to open this again, and in the first 6 seconds, if we stop it, it won't go through the whole sequence again. So basically, if you needed to change your code or add something to your code, you can stop it from automating all your actions, and you can go in and modify the code. Now, if we're already awake, so it's not going to interrupt that password I talked about. If you watch up here, we're going to create the PDF PL2 in this directory. So you watch right now only PL1, and the time is today at 3 in the afternoon. If we click PL2 PDF, it made a PDF of that quickly. If we open this PDF in preview, you'll see that this is the new PDF with new data that's just been downloaded from Yahoo Finance. So all of this code is run fairly simply with both the code that I have in the OpenOffice Calc spreadsheet and it in turn interacting with the operating system to allow all of this to work smoothly. Notice that when if I click the Get Stock Info, then you can put any number of symbols in here, stock symbols, and what it does when you click this button is it takes this line, it adds to it https:// Finance.Yahoo.com quotes, puts in those symbols, and then /view v1, and that is what it sends out to my web browser, the Safari web browser, to actually go out and do this. There's literally no additional code needed. And I've also put another button up here, go to PL1, or the one here, go to PL2. Just toggles us back and forth without clicking down here on these 3 buttons down below. So that's how you do this. I want to just show you a few more things. I mentioned in my presentation that you might want to download the additional items of amphetamine and the additional item of caffeine, because those are the 2 things that tell the Mac to turn on all of the chips to their high power states. So they're not in low power mode, and they'll do the jobs you need them to do when you ask them to do it. And what kind of code is needed to call those routines? Well, one is wake Mac and the other is wake Mac sh. It stands for a shell routine that's run in Linux type environments. So let's take a look at what wake Mac does. Basically it says do a shell script B, and B, the shell script B is a call to WakeMac SH. And it has to get the path, and it knows that since since it knows where it's located in WakeMac, it looks in the same directory for WakeMac SH. So then it does this shell script 3 times and basically keeps the Mac awake if you haven't entered a password, but you need to do some relatively simple things. You can't go out to the internet because you have to activate more chips to get out to the internet. You have to enter that password. Apple has made it a security issue not to go to activate those other chips and get them into high power mode unless you've entered the password first. So, but if you need just a few things done that are just local to the computer, then you can actually do this kind of a call to just put the Mac in higher power mode. And what that higher power mode looks like is a pound exclamation point slash bin slash dash backslash, actually forward slash, and then caffeine u dash T2. Basically, this is telling the Mac to get all of its chips in high power mode so they can be used. So that's all I have. I hope I've covered everything that you might need to actually develop your own code and use it. And as I said, what I'm looking for, it's taken thousands of hours of my time to get to the point of having very concise code that runs very well. And for you to have that access without going through the thousands of hours, I believe is of benefit to both you and hopefully to me. So that's all I have to say. Have a great day. One more thing, I just wanted to show this device one more time. This is a Raspberry Pi 4 with a SSD connected through its USB port. And this whole thing before the pandemic hit and we had some supply issues, all of this costs about $100. It might cost $150 or more now, but this is the device, and if you run it with a Twister skin operating system on top of the Pi operating system, then it basically looks and feels and runs just about as fast as a Macintosh. What's the advantage? Well, this device with a monitor and keyboard and everything else is under $200 versus a new Mac at $1,000 to $1,500, or a laptop or a full-size desktop Mac at anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000. And of course, this Pi Zero here and its daughter board are about $30. So that's why I bring up the fact that these can all run my Program Lessons application. Have a great day.